Last updated December 21, 2017, 12:07 p.m. EST. United Nations. The United Nations General Assembly is voting Thursday on a resolution condemning President Trump's new policy recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Mr. Trump says he'll be watching very closely at which members of the General Assembly vote for the resolution and which vote against it. The resolution states that any decision to change the status of Jerusalem is null and void, has no legal effect, and that it must be rescinded. It's also calling on member countries not to set up diplomatic missions in Jerusalem. Follow below for updates, which are stated Eastern Time unless otherwise noted. 11:15 a.m. Israel's ambassador to UN holds up coin to make his case. Danny Israel's ambassador to the UN, held up a coin he said is from 67 AD and bears the words, in Hebrew, Freedom of Zion. He said it is clear evidence that proves the ancient connection of Jews to Jerusalem. No UNESCO declaration, no empty speeches, no General Assembly resolution will ever drive us from Jerusalem, he said. These are the facts this body does not want to hear. These are the facts this body wishes to ignore. I am holding up a coin from the year 67 AD found in Jerusalem. Written on it in Hebrew are the words, Freedom of Zion. No UN resolution will ever drive us from Jerusalem. 1/4pic.twitter.com web link ambassador @Danny December 21, 2017, 11:12 a.m. Nikki Haley speaks. U.S. ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley spoke to the UN General Assembly ahead of vote. Watch live. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley speaks to the UN General Assembly ahead of vote on President Trump's Jerusalem decision. T.co web link pic.twitter.com web link CBS News, @CBS News, December 21, 2017. Haley told an emergency meeting of the Assembly that no vote in the United Nations will make any difference on the U.S. decision to move its embassy to Jerusalem, which will go ahead because it is the right thing to do. She said the United States will remember this day in which it was singled out for attack in the General Assembly for the very right of exercising our right as a sovereign nation. We will remember it when we are called upon once again to make the world's largest contribution to the United Nations, she said. And we will remember when so many countries come calling on us, as they so often do, to pay even more and to use our influence for their benefit. Haley said Thursday's vote will make a difference on how Americans look at the UN and on how we look at countries who disrespect us in the UN, and this vote will be remembered. 11:10 a.m. Israeli Prime Minister thanks Trump and Haley. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanked Mr. Trump and Nikki Haley in a tweet Thursday for standing up for Israel and for standing up for the truth. Ultimately the truth will prevail, he added. Thank you President Trump and Ambassador Haley for standing up for Israel and for standing up for the truth. Ultimately the truth will prevail. Pic.twitter.com web link Benjamin Netanyahu, @Netanyahu, December 21, 2017, 11 a.m. Yemen's UN ambassador calls U.S. decision null and void. Yemen's UN ambassador introduced the UN resolution calling the U.S. decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital null and void and urging all peace-loving countries to vote in favor of it. Ambassador Khalid Hossein Mohammed Al-Yemeni called President Trump's action a blatant violation of the rights of the Palestinian people and the Arab nations, and all Muslims and Christians of the world. Al-Yemeni, speaking as chair of the Arab group at the UN, was the first speaker at an emergency meeting of the UN General Assembly. He said the U.S. decision is considered a dangerous violation and breach of international law and that it threatens peace in the world, undermines any chance for peace in the Mideast and only serves to fan the fires of violence and extremism. Background on the vote: Mr. Trump threatened to cut financial support to those nations that vote in favor of the resolution, a threat that has raised the stakes in the UN vote and sparked criticism at his tactics, which one Muslim group called bullying or blackmail. For all of these nations that take our money and then they vote against us at the Security Council, or they vote against us, potentially, at the Assembly, they take hundreds of millions of dollars, and even billions of dollars, and then they vote against us, Mr. Trump said. Well, we're watching those votes. Let them vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care. Mr. Trump went a step further than U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley, who hinted in a tweet and a letter to most of the 193 UN member states on Tuesday that the U.S. would retaliate against countries that vote in favor of a General Assembly resolution calling on the president to rescind his decision. Haley said the president asked her to report back on countries who voted against us, and she stressed that the United States will be taking names. With the letter and the tweet, Haley is pressing other countries to stand by the U.S. decision, hoping for a better result than in another recent vote on a similar resolution in the Security Council which left the U.S. alone against the 14 other council members, CBS Good News' Pamela Falk reported. The U.S., as a permanent member of the council, was able to veto that measure with a single vote. Nihad Awad, National Executive Director of the Council on American-Islamic Relations, tweeted after Mr. Trump's comments, "Our government should not use its leadership at the UN to bully, blackmail other nations that stand for religious liberty and justice in Jerusalem. Justice is a core value of Christianity, Judaism and Islam." The Palestinians and their Arab and Islamic supporters sought the General Assembly vote after the United States on Monday vetoed the resolution supported by the 14 other UN Security Council members that would have required Mr. Trump to rescind his declaration on Jerusalem as Israel's capital and not move the U.S. embassy there. Before Haley's letter and tweet, Palestinian UN Ambassador Riyad Mansour told the Associated Press he expected massive support for the resolution in the General Assembly. Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki and Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu accused the U.S. of intimidation. They told reporters at Istanbul's Ataturk Airport on Wednesday before flying to New York to attend the General Assembly meeting that they believe UN member countries will ignore pressure from Haley. Al-Maliki said he believes that countries will vote their conscience, and they will vote for justice, and they will vote in favor of that resolution. No honorable state would vote to such pressure, Cavusoglu said. The world has changed. The belief that I am strong therefore I am right has changed. The world today is revolting against injustices. Turkey's President, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, said Thursday he hopes the United States will be taught a lesson during the UN vote. Speaking at a cultural awards ceremony in Ankara, Erdogan accused Mr. Trump of seeking countries whose decisions can be bought with dollars. Mr. Trump, you cannot buy Turkey's democratic will with your dollars. Our decision is clear, he said. I call on the whole world, don't you dare sell your democratic struggle and your will for petty dollars, he added. Ambassador Ronta King of the tiny Caribbean nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines sent Haley letters saying that her country treasures the United States as an enduring ally but will vote against Mr. Trump's action. Sometimes, friends differ. On Jerusalem, St. Vincent and the Grenadines respectfully differs from the USA, and so, too, do many of the staunchest friends and allies of the USA, King wrote. We gently urge yet again that the government of the USA rethink its position and approach on this entire matter. What impact the threats from Mr. Trump and Haley will have remains to be seen. Some diplomats predict the resolution will be supported by at least 150 countries, and possibly 180 nations. Israel has also been conducting a global lobbying campaign against the resolution, government officials said Wednesday. The vote will show whether Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has succeeded in his efforts to drum up new pockets of support in the developing world. Netanyahu acknowledged Thursday the vote would likely pass by a wide margin but said Israel completely rejects this vote before it is made. Haley said in her letter, sent to delegations of over 180 countries, that the Trump administration is simply asking that you acknowledge the historical friendship, partnership, and support we have extended and respect our decision about our own embassy. She said the U.S. Congress decided 22 years ago that Jerusalem should be recognized as the capital of Israel and Mr. Trump followed through on that decision. Her tweet was sharper. At the UN we're always asked to do more and give more. So, when we make a decision, at the will of the American people, out where to locate our embassy, we don't expect those we've helped to target us. On Thursday there'll be a vote criticizing our choice. The U.S. will be taking names. This was not the first time that Haley threatened to keep track of U.S. opponents. On January 27, the day she arrived at the United Nations as ambassador, Haley announced a new way the United States would be doing business. The Trump administration's goal is to show U.S. strength, speak out and defend its allies, and as for countries opposing America, we're taking names, she said. The letter on the Jerusalem vote was the first time since then that Haley vowed to compile a list. Her action recalled to some veteran UN diplomats the run-up to the Iraq War in 2002 when then U.S. President George W. Bush launched a campaign against France and other opponents of military action who refused to support the Security Council resolution to authorize war. The resolution, which former British Prime Minister Tony Blair was pressing for and the U.S. backed, was withdrawn by Britain because it was certain to be defeated as a result of strong council opposition. The resolution being voted on Thursday is co-sponsored by Turkey, chair of the Summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and Yemen, chair of the Arab group at the UN. It is very similar to the defeated Security Council resolution. The draft resolution says Jerusalem is a final status issue and reaffirms 10 Security Council resolutions on Jerusalem, dating back to 1967, including requirements that the city's final status must be decided in direct negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. It affirms that any decisions and actions which purport to have altered the character, status or demographic composition of the Holy City of Jerusalem have no legal effect, are null and void and must be rescinded. The draft resolution demands that all states comply with Security Council resolutions regarding the Holy City of Jerusalem, and not to recognize any actions on measures contrary to those resolutions. At context, schema.org, at type, video object, thumbnail URL, https, web link. Votes on resolution condemning U.S. decision on Jerusalem. Description: Trump has threatened to cut off U.S. funding to countries that oppose his decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Content rating: PG-13, video quality, 720p, publication, at type, broadcast event, is live broadcast, through, start date, 2017 12/21 T15:00:00.000z, end date, 2017 12/21 T23:00:000.000z, upload date, 2017 12/21 T15:00:000.000z.